I'm Van.
I'm Sori.
That's Lavi.
And Salty and Chip.
Grazia, grazia, grazia. What's up? Okay, so this is a Patreon Alliance pick. This is Agalloch, or Agalloch. Agalloch. I think it's Agalloch. In the shadow of our pale companion. I think this is the black metal band. I'm not sure.
I don't know anything about these people. I just
Agalloch?
know that the Alliance picked it. That the patrons band together to get their song.
This was True Cult. This is the True Cult Alliance.
Yep.
They band together. So the first song True Cult selected was for their big homie, Kyle. They did Scars, which was definitely not a black metal song in any way, shape, or form.
It was a song of love.
But it was love for their big
homie.
homie. Yeah. It was interesting because we're hanging out with True Cult yesterday, and those guys really love each other.
I know.
Man.
It was so weird because I felt like that they were like friends before we even knew them.
Yeah, I felt like an outsider.
I did a little bit. I was like, wait. I'm like, hey.
Fine, we can't be in your little crew. Fuck you guys.
But then I think that they feel like that we're a part of it, even though I felt like a little bit of an outsider. I was
Hurtful.
Like, wait.
Why don't you be more inclusive, True Cult?
That's why I said, wait, is it because of us that you guys are friends?
Right. Trying to have some connection somehow.
Okay, then I am connected. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. So this is Agalloch in the shadow of our pale companion.
Ooh.
And I'm pulling up the lyricals. Lyrically, people can't see me. Got it?
Sure.
You know where that comes from. Mm-hmm. All right, let's do it.
Go.
Sounds like something I play, right?
What?
Sounds like something I play.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I feel nervous already. Wow. You know, I feel like there's like 4 different categories for art. There's like, that's total shit. And then there's like, I can sonically and see like, or, you know, visually see what you were trying to do that, and it's art. It doesn't touch me in any way, but I can see, you know, that it's not shit. And then I feel like the third one is like, whoa, like that's really good. And like I was frozen, almost basking in the beauty of your art, you know, artistic expression. And then I think the fourth one is when you're awestruck by their artistic ability, but it inspires art within your own soul. And this one is a level 4 for me. It like inspires art within my own soul. This
makes you want to write.
Yes.
Yeah.
Art, just all different types of art. You know, body movements, writing, like just, you know, painting or, you know, anything. Like it's very, very, very inspiring. And the topic was very interesting. Like it sounded like, from what I got from it, that this person is just traveling. Like I got the idea that it was over like the course of their life and in their pursuit of like or journey to try to find God, in a sense. But I was thinking when we were listening to it, how interesting it is. Like, I know you've said this a bunch of times, but it was kind of just hitting me in that moment where you said that depending on, you know, like things that are like true to life is what we got to kind of stick with. Like, so if somebody has like some idea, but it can't really be worked out in real life, then it's that can't be the reality. You know what I mean? Like if people just naturally do things, like you can say one thing, but like what you do naturally is what's more natural to human beings. And I was thinking about how it's so many expressions of music. Of course, you know, when I was able to start listening to music, it always had to be Christian music. And then when I started like kind of sneaking music, it was like country music, because that was kind of like the one that was like okayed by one of the local churches. In a sense, it was kind of okayed. But they would talk about God, you know what I mean? Not to the degree that metal music does. But I thought that country music was somehow like, whoa, like that's really cool that they put some stuff about God in there. So I thought, well, that was something, I thought it was unique to country music. And then of course, like then I kind of ventured into like the hip hop, like rap sort of, and they didn't really talk about, the stuff that I was listening to didn't really talk about God at all. But then like this stuff, it seems like it's a lot. It's like a lot of the focus, a lot of the theme. And then I was thinking how like, a lot of times people define themselves, like in my opinion, this guy is defining himself by his journey in search of God, and at some points it seems like he really doesn't find God. Instead he just finds this grim companion that is there, but it's not like what he's actually looking for. But maybe I misunderstood that. But anyway, I was thinking about how even so we define ourselves by our God. We're theists. And then I was thinking that somebody, like you'll walk around and you'll talk to people and they will say, like we see it a lot in the comment sections or in emails or whatever, people will say, I'm agnostic, or, you know, I'm an atheist. And I'm thinking, that's so interesting that somebody defines themselves by their not believing in God. Like, why is that? But why does that define you? Like, you're using that as a definition of yourself. Yeah. So you're still connected to God. Because I was thinking how the theme of God comes up in so many of these songs. Yeah. But they're on a scale, you know? Like, sometimes it's like, there seems like there's a search. Sometimes it seems like they're angry with God. Sometimes it's like they want to say that God doesn't really exist. Like, seems like there's just different ways. But a lot of times, it's still coming back to that theme of God in the music. I mean, way more than country music ever did, you know? But anyway, I just thought that was really interesting, and it kind of made me think, and maybe I can't, this is going to be a bullet out in the room when I say this, but like, you know how like feminists will define themselves by like, we're like better than men, or like we, you know, we're empowered and stuff. Yeah. But then the way that they construct themselves strips away their femininity. You know, they'll wear the pantsuit, they'll cut their hair short. So you're like, I thought we were trying to empower women, and then that should mean that we should be at the height of our like feminine expression, not like making yourself look more and more like a man. So I just thought,
well, like, a parody of a man.
Yeah.
Because it's
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just thought, like, to me it was like the same thing. Like I think that if I thought that there was no God and there was nothing within me that had even that fight, Like, I don't even think that I would define myself as an atheist. I think I wouldn't even want to use those words because I wouldn't even want to connect myself to some, like it's, to me, it's kind of like walking around, like, if you were like, I'm not, I don't, what's that, fairies or something. I don't know. Like, I don't believe in fairies.
Atheist.
Yeah, I'm an atheist. Like, who cares? Like, you're okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, none of us really believe in. I mean, I'm sure there's a small fraction of people that believe there's fairies, but that's going to be pretty small. But we wouldn't define ourselves. We don't believe there's fairies.
Right.
But we're not going to define ourselves by that and go out in public and say, I don't believe in fairies, and that's definitive of who I am. That defines me.
Atheist alliance.
Yeah.
And all this
so I just think that that's really interesting. But then that kind of goes back to that thought of, like, what is, like, you can't separate yourself from it. People trying to separate themselves all over the place from it. But there's still this kind of, and then the themes and the artwork, again, throughout this.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me say more. I've got so much to say, and then you can jump in because you won't forget. Like, the artwork throughout this video, there was, like, a lot of, like evil stuff, you know what I mean, that was, like, kind of lurking in the background or, like, coming out in the forefront and different stuff, and then people slaying dragons and stuff like that. And that type of art has been throughout history. You can always see stuff like this good versus evil, like, and it's like, oh, so why do humans everywhere over cultures and stuff have this understanding that there is a battle going on between good and evil? And then kind of connecting that with the whole God thing. So anyway, I just thought that was very interesting. Your turn.
Well, yeah, and that's an interesting point. The term atheism is still a concession that God is the ultimate reality that you have to contend with.
Yeah.
I mean,
you see what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. It's very interesting. That's sometimes I'll say, you claim to be an atheist.
Yeah.
He's like,
now, I'm not trying to laugh at our atheist people. Like, no. I'm just saying, like, if I didn't believe that there was a God and I was living my life that way, I wouldn't call myself an atheist. I would say you people would say I'm an atheist.
Although this song isn't about atheism at all.
No, I didn't think it was about atheism. I thought that this was somebody in their pursuit of God, and it seems like they never really caught him.
Well,
it
seems like I think I read the term pale companion. I feel like I read a poem one time by an atheist.
Oh, really?
And he was talking about Jesus, but he called him, I'm pretty sure he called him our pale friend or something like that.
Why would they call him our pale friend?
Because he's dead. You're saying he rose from the dead, but he's really this. And then like he basically said, like, because of you, like, everything basically has lost its color, basically, because religion has come and stripped everybody of their whatever. I feel like I forgot who it was, but
oh wow, that actually makes sense.
I just might have just made the entire thing up. So if that's the case, then the pale companion would be Jesus or Christianity, because in his mind, so it's like he's in the shadow of the pale companion because he's left him behind, but he's still, like, haunting him he's still haunting him in the background, but he's left. Seems like he's left religion, but he's trying to find God in spite of man. Mm-hmm. Which, if you're talking about self-awareness, that is huge, because what he's saying is that the God that people presented to him was unsatisfactory. Yeah. And instead of just being, because it's kind of, we were talking to somebody yesterday, and he was like, we were talking about the Crusades or whatever, and he was like, yeah, just because somebody, did something in the past doesn't mean that all religion is bad, or the concept of religion is wrong. Yeah. So it's like, in search of God in spite of man, he's basically saying, I'm not going to let, what a person did or the way they represented God be the end-all, be-all. Right. Right. So I thought that was good. Of course, it was so interesting listening to this song and then considering this. So what he does is he understands, shall we fall into the nihil?
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, I talk about nihilism a lot, or nihilism. Yeah. Which is this concept of emptiness, that you're not worth anything, and that there's no ultimate objective value in anything. Yep. And any value you have is made up and is not actually real. And so he basically says, if I turn my back on this, the threat of falling into nihilism is a real thing. And I think that's a very honest, self-aware
Are you sure? Because he
understanding.
says fall. Shall we fall into the the nothingness that we feel in the arms of the pale, in the shadow of the grim companion who walks with us? It almost sounds like he's saying, like, if we actually find Jesus or get to him, like, maybe that's like...
Well, he
Because
would.
he's talking about that being nothingness.
If he believed that Jesus was still alive, that he rose from the dead, he wouldn't call him the pale. If
Yeah.
I'm right.
Yeah.
So what he's saying is, we've turned our back on religion. We don't believe that Jesus is alive and vibrant. We believe he's pale.
Yeah.
And he's a grim companion. So because we've turned our back on him, what do we have left but to fall into nihilism?
Okay, yeah. I see.
And he eventually comes to try to find some meaning. I would argue that he ends up not finding any meaning, but I'll talk about that in a second. But what's interesting is, if he is saying, if I turn my back on God,
Yeah.
if we do that, nihilism is a real option / danger that we could fall into.
Yeah.
And I love that because, again, when you read Bertrand Russell, you read Nietzsche, these guys understood that nihilism was probably option A if their worldview was true.
Yep.
Now, Nietzsche fought against it. He found his own way to try to work around it and all the rest of it. But you have to acknowledge that it's true. And so when atheists go, atheism has nothing to do with nihilism at all. Look, what are you talking about? There's no correlation between atheism and nihilism. Really? Well, why is this guy saying, maybe we're going to fall into nihilism?
Yeah.
And he's kind of like panicking, trying to find some way to construct some meaning in his life. I'm not saying that if you're an atheist, you necessarily have to become a nihilist, because I believe we're creating the image of God, and that there's a telos, there's an ultimate telos for all of us, and so you're gonna default to try to create meaning, even if it's inconsistent with the ramifications of your worldview. All I'm saying is, be honest.
Yeah.
Be honest. Like in Christianity, you have to be honest. There's concepts in Christianity I don't like. Hell, don't like it.
No.
I've talked about it many times.
Yeah.
It's there. I'm gonna own it.
Yep.
Own it.
Right. Right.
The artists and the philosophers continuously tell you that this is a logical ramification of a certain worldview that you have to overcome in order to make it work. Just be honest, man. Okay. So here's what I think happens. So he turns his back on religion, we're going to assume Christianity, and he's worried about falling into nihilism. And so what he does is he goes to the earth. Right? Here is the landscape, here's the sun, the balance of the earth. Where is the God? Has he fallen and abandoned us? And then he says, here I gaze at a pantheon of oak, a citadel of stone. If this grand panorama before me is what you call God, then God is not dead. So there it is, a pale companion, I'm arguing is God, particularly Jesus. So a pantheon is a council of gods. So he calls it a pantheon of oak, which means that the trees are God, right? And a citadel doubles as a city / temple of stone.
Yeah.
And so the religion then becomes nature, which is it's some form of pantheism, right?
Well, he was saying, here's the landscape, here's the sun, here in the balance of the earth, where is the God?
Right. Has he fallen and abandoned us?
Yeah.
And so he's edging closer, and he's feeling all the nature around him, and so now he transfers his desire for worship from God or Jesus,
to
and
that.
he transfers it now to
The pantheon and the citadel.
the nature.
Yeah, which
Trees and all this stuff,
nature,
trees and rocks and all this stuff, and the sun and all this good jazz, right?
You know, it's interesting because you hear a lot of people say, like, I don't go to church, like, I go out in the woods, that's my church, that's my, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The worship of the earth or worship of the sun. The sun is the most worshipped deity in the ancient world.
And I get it. Like, I think that a lot of times that the reason that people do that is because they've been hurt in their ways or they're confused in ways and stuff like that. And I think that there's something about nature that makes us feel, it feels, I don't know. Supernatural is not the word, but when you get out in nature, you feel closer to God. Like, it feels like I think that people confuse that for thinking maybe this is God, like maybe God is here around me. But that is like, no, you're just close, you know, like you're surrounded by things that essentially like have God's fingerprints all over it. Like you're surrounded by his workmanship. It would be like if your dad was a woodworker and you went down in his shop when you missed him, you know, whatever, like, so you're surrounded by his things. And so like, you feel like, hey, like this is the spot, but it's actually, no, it's like one of the stops on the journey, like keep going. Like, you know, there's some supernatural place that you can reach from in those places, but it's not, those things are not the end all.
And of course, it's a garden scene. He's got trees, he's got stones, he's got a river. That's a garden scene, and so in that sense, he's going back to Eden minus God.
Right. Yeah.
Right, which is so it's happening. And what's interesting, if you check out ancient Near Eastern temples, they're always gardens, always. 100% of the time. In the Israelite religion, it's always a garden, and the reason is because the Garden of Eden was the first temple. Yeah. The temple is a meeting place of God and man. Yep. And so like when God wanted to construct the original temple, he didn't like build buildings with stones, he just created a garden and boom, and he says, let's hang out there. So then later on in Israelite religion, when they construct a temple, the outside was all this and that, but if you actually go in, you see gourds and trees and rivers and all this stuff, and it's supposed to replicate the Garden of Eden. And so pantheism, at least in this sense, where nature becomes divine, like you deify nature. Yep. It's a way of having Eden without having the God who created Eden. Because you have your own personal issues with him. You know, like you'd never blame an oak tree for losing your mom or losing your brother or you know, whatever. And an oak tree is not going to call you to live a certain moral life. Right. So it's almost a way of controlling the divine to some degree, because a tree's not going to make any demands of you. Right. Other than don't cut me down. What's the sun going to do? Right. What's interesting though is that the guy ends up killing himself, I think. I walked down into a river, a slat in reflection of what had to be done, an offering of crimson. Float in the water below. So he walks down to the river, and a sacrifice has to be done. Wow. And then, if you go down, it says, it washed away in a tide of longing and longing for a better world from my will, from my throat, to the river, into the sea. So he slit his own throat. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. And the river becomes red with his blood, basically. But it says, an offering of crimson flowed into the river below, a wound of spirit from which it floated and faded away. So because he was wounded in spirit, because he was disconnected to God somehow, he tries to find meaning in nature. And it just so happens that he has to slit his own throat, and he's dying. But it's the wound really comes from his spirit. That's why I'm saying, like, he tried to find meaning. Yeah. But he couldn't. And so, in my mind, this is a form of nihilism got him. Yeah. You know, like he kind of, it looked like he like deceived himself into thinking that, oh, my death will be meaningful. But the facts are, it seemed to me that the nature couldn't do it for him anymore. And so he just kills himself. Well, yeah, because he says it floated away like every hope I've ever had, like every dream I've ever known. It washed away. In a tide of longing for a better world. So yeah, everything that he ever wanted or was searching for, in the end, he didn't find it there because... Well, the tree's not the thing. That's not it. Yeah. You know, it's... The wood shop isn't dad. Yeah. You know, and you have to say, then what is a better world? That's the question. That's the ultimate question. Yeah. Because he's not saying, I hate God, I hate everything because people are violent to each other. Yeah. He's not saying... this world sucks because people die of cancer. The only problem that this character has in this narrative is that he can't find God. Yeah. So then what's a better world then? A place where he can find God. A place where he can find God, where he can connect with God, because he says, has he fallen and abandoned us? Yeah. You know, and of course the Christian response is that God fell so that he could never abandon you. Right. Right? Right. Is that God became a man and he fell in death in order to guarantee that we would always have him. Right. But if you leave that behind, you're stuck trying to create your own meaning, and human beings are absolutely terrible at creating meaning for ourselves. We're not that good at it at all. Just not. Because people go, oh, I find meaning in my family. That's a real fucking fragile gamble that you're taking.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen to your family tomorrow.
No.
You don't know what that call is going to be from the sheriff's office at 2:30 at night about your teenager. You don't know what that doctor's going to say about your wife's biopsy. So if you try to put meaning into your family, like, that's real shaky fucking ground to plant your meaning. And you try to find meaning in your work, that's real shaky ground. You could lose all that shit tomorrow. So, like, we're not very good at creating ultimate meaning that can sustain us over a lifetime by ourselves.
Well, it's like that parable that, I don't know if it was Jesus, I'm guessing Jesus that told it. It was the person that built their house on the sand. And then when the storms and the winds and, whatever of life came, it washed the house and broke everything down. But the person who had their house built on the rock, on that foundation, like when the storms came, it didn't topple over. And the only thing that we can build our life on that isn't going to change would be God.
Yeah. And it's...
But I wait a minute. I know I just said that, but then at the same time you think to yourself, well, what about God? What about God is the foundation that you build your life on? Because you can't build your life on the foundation that God is going to prosper you and everything's going to be perfect, and because that's a faulty foundation too.
Yeah,
because that's not true. That's not the facts.
Well, I was talking to my atheist friend. He said you have no guaranteed outcome.
Life happens. Yeah.
He said you believe in God, you have no guaranteed outcome. I said,
we don't have a guaranteed outcome anyway.
I said yes, I do. He's going to love me tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate thing for me. God loves me today. He's going to love me tomorrow. He's for me today. He's going to be for me tomorrow. Everything that happens in my life, good or bad, is God being for me. Yeah. There's thousands of enemies and naysayers, and you're your own worst enemy and all that.
Yeah.
All these people are weighted on the scale, and then boom, God's on the other side, and He tips the scales in my favor because He's for me 100%, and He's for me today. He's gonna be for me tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm one of His favorites, and He's gonna do everything in His power to make sure that His plan for me is completely successful. That's a guaranteed outcome. That's what I stake my life on. And John says in 1 John, so we rely on the love of God that God has for us.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Anything else, forget it. He loves me and He has a plan for me. Like that's it. So that's where I get my stability. That's where I get my meaning. And nothing can shake that. And so a lot of people like conflate that with arrogance. It's just belief. It's just belief that what God says about us is true. Like to all who believed in His name, He gave the right to become children of God. Yeah. Like that's it. Period. So there you go. That's that. But this guy. You got a really heavy to call yourself a Christian. That's a real, like, you gotta watch how you treat people, man. You gotta really, really watch how you treat people. And but if you don't know that, if you're not rooted in the love that God has for you, then you're a lot less patient with people. Mm-hmm. Yep. And you're a lot more, whatever. And if people don't, so it's interesting. I still see comments about that fireside chat with that Nazi kid, and people are just like, blown away by that. But of course, what's Nazism going to do to you if God is for you? Yep. You know what I mean? Yeah. But anyway, the guy ends up dying, I think.
Oh, yeah. I'm stalked by the shadow of death's hand. My heathen pride is scarred across the land. Mm-hmm. What do you make of that, though?
Well,
he's dead.
Initially, it was a shadow of our pale companion. I'm assuming is Jesus. Yeah. Right? And then because Jesus is dead, if Jesus is dead, that means there was no resurrection. Mm-hmm. And Paul says it. He said, well, shit, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, your faith is in vain. Everything is in vain. Go eat, drink, be merry, for tomorrow we die. See you later. Paul's. It's interesting because Paul's alternative to the resurrection isn't nihilism; it's hedonism. It's like live it up as much as you possibly can, which hedonism, a person could argue, is a form of nihilism. Basically, live it up as much as you possibly can, guy. Because death is going to have the final say.
Yeah.
If Jesus didn't rise from the dead, then death has the final say.
Yeah.
I was listening to the chat yesterday, and somebody's like, "We're not immortal. We're not this. We're not that," and that colored how he viewed the world. And so it just wasn't the right time to get in an argument about the resurrection. So I was just listening to him, but I mean, that's not reality for us. And so he's no longer stalked by the pale companion. The pale companion gives way to death itself because there is no hope in the afterlife. So like even as he's dying, he's being stalked by death. And his heathen pride is scarred across the land because, I guess he's dead. He's dying.
Yeah.
So he's stalked by death's hand because that's ultimately going to consume him, and there is nothing after that.
Yikes.
Which, again, it's like he's fighting against nihilism. He's fighting against it with all of his might.
Yeah.
But then he acquiesces to it at the very, very end of the
Yep. Wow.
of the song. But the beauty of the instrumentation.
Oh my gosh.
And I really liked how patient they were with developing the music. And, I think they know their fan base. They probably do a bunch of long songs. This is like 14 and a half minutes.
Oh, I know, yeah. When we started it, I was like, oh my gosh, 14 and a half minutes. If this is terrible, that's sometimes 4-minute songs, they feel like forever.
I know.
So I was like, either I'm going to jump into that zone where like time is no more, that's what happened.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, boom, the song was over. I was like, seriously?
It was really good. Every segment of the musicianship and the instrumentation was necessary.
Yeah.
I thought.
It was.
And it was very good.
Yeah.
Really good taste, and just like there were some build-ups, there were some rising actions, there was peaks and valleys, but there was also just like the mournful, especially like the last solo was pretty mournful. Some of it was just so
ridiculously beautiful. Just the art level, the level. I'm telling you, the level.
Well, I was thinking. Well, I was thinking about this with the comment from that source in Batushka a couple days ago, where they were saying that Christian hymnology and Bible passages are more dark and heavy and deep than most black metal, and then you compare that with most American evangelical music.
Yeah.
And it's like it's that depth of like trying to wrestle with ultimate issues that creates this type of art. And it's like you don't have to be a Christian, obviously, to be in the image of God and present music that is sort of like the soundtrack to a philosophical journey and an honest struggle with life and how to relate to that transcendent part of us that you can't really put your finger on. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are. Everybody knows that there's like a part of you that you can't really define. And that is it's the music just connects with that part of who you are.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
So it's so interesting. Where is the God has he fallen to? What's interesting is it's where is the God? It's not where is God, which I think is
I actually liked that.
Is very significant.
Yes.
Because anytime you put a definite article before something, there's only one.
Yep, there's only one.
I was talking to a buddy of mine. I said the gods have gifted you. He said, if there is a God, there's only one.
Good for him.
But that's such a in search of the God, like, or where is the God?
Yep.
It's like there's one of them. Because think about it, if theism is real, then there is a true one. It's like Nergal said, "Living God, I shall not forgive."
Yep. Yeah.
Like there's a living God.
Oh, yep.
You don't say, Mr. Nergal. Good song. Very honest, very weighty.
What type of metal is that?
I'm glad this is a Patreon pick because I don't think this
it would have never happened.
This would have took. No, I don't think about never, because I think if enough people requested it, we would
yeah,
have
but
done
I
it.
haven't seen that asked for a bunch of times.
Yeah, I only see like 2 or 3 people
Yeah.
ask for it consistently, but the Patreon thing worked exactly the way it was supposed to in this particular case, because it wasn't a song that it wasn't like a Metallica song or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Now this, like, I'm giving this a 10. I mean,
you don't say.
obviously. And this is like, it was an easy 10. You're gonna think this is interesting, but, or maybe not. I liked them like I like Nihilism Lascaris, but they were very different from Nihilism Lascaris. But it was like that, like a different type of art. They're not comparable. I don't think that they're comparable, so don't get me wrong. Like, but it was like that where I was like surprised by the layers, I guess, within their music.
Yeah, this is a 10 for me for sure.
Some 10s are so easy. Some I'm like, I'm gonna give it a 10. But like this was like a very
Some
easy
10s are
10.
10s in principle.
Yeah. Yes.
But this is one where it's like, you know, again, it is
Great topic.
Could
the
you-
music itself.
You know how I always say you know you put it in a time capsule 40 years and open it. Mm-hmm. This is also one you could put it back 100 years, like go backwards.
Right. No, you're right. Yes.
And Bertrand Russell would say, "Shit,
Yeah.
go read Bertrand Russell's The Free Man's Worship, and then listen to the song again, and then there you are." I do like I had one of my atheist buddies reach out to me. He's like, "All right, what should I read from Bertrand Russell?" And I said,
Oh, good.
"Real quick, The Free Man's Worship. Go read that. You know, like, go for it. Educate yourself. Don't take it from me."
Yeah.
And this is an atheist. I'm not telling him to go read the Bible.
Yeah.
Tell him go read one of the giants of atheism.
Yep.
Good night. But yeah, like I think like sometimes I wish that Nietzsche and these guys could hear this shit.
I know.
You know, because they were kind of at the forefront of something, and
I
like
know.
these guys are they're the sons.
These are
They're the sons of these people.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Yeah. Wow.
and I think they'd be proud. I think they would be, because they're still able to make beautiful art, and speak about the condition in such an amazing way. One of these days, I'm gonna I don't know how we're gonna do it, combined literature and music and video and all this, and like just a package of,
The beauty.
well, particularly from atheists, because or like they have a certain type of wound that
Yeah.
religious people just don't have.
I would help you with that project.
Yeah, because, you know, when he talks about the wound, like, there are so many Christians I know that, like, don't really believe this stuff. They don't. But they're not going to say it. You know, they've got a lot of wounds as far as, like, their walk with God or whatever, and they've got, like, a ton of doubts, and, like, they won't articulate it.
Yeah.
And so because of that, like, it's covered up, whereas these atheist folks, the ones who are honest enough to say, like, I still wish God was around, and I'm wounded because of it, and, you know, life sucks now,
Yeah.
create probably the best forms of art that there is. I'm saying probably because that's a very broad statement. All right, the 10 from me.
Definitely a 10 for me too.
Good job, True Cult. Came up with a very, very good song. Good things come to those who wait. They've been messaging me like, "When are you gonna do the Patreon pick?" Well, I'm not gonna do it like on schedule, so you bums know when to look for it.
And the other thing too is when, you know, it's a 15-minute song, we're not going to do that when we have like a time crunch. We want to make sure we give this the appropriate amount of time, you know?
Yeah.
We don't want to rush something that's a long song. We want to make sure we leave enough
Respect
time to
the
be
artist.
able to break it down however long it takes.
Too deep. This is too deep to do a 10-minute review.
No, yeah.
As if
Well,
we've ever
I
done
was
a
like, we don't do a
10-minute
10-minute review, but
All right. Talk to us next time. You know who you are. All right. Vin out.
sorry out.
Gone.